My name is Sienna Calderon, and I'm 26 years old, the age my family thought I'd be in a white coat or behind a glass desk. Instead, I smell like brake cleaner, carry a torque wrench in my bag, and fall asleep counting socket sizes. It's not cute, it's mine. Thanksgiving, the year after high school, was the first time the family said it out loud. Aunt Carol held a stemless wine glass like a prop and peered at me over the rim. So, Sienna, you're just going to be a mechanic? She stretched the word like gum. I nodded. Yep. She blinked, then chuckled. Well, someone has to wipe up when real professionals break things. In our house, college wasn't a dream. It was oxygen. Mom and Dad met at Stanford. My older cousin Derek was the family's laboratory saint headed for med school, and our group chat wore scrubs for him. Me? I'd enrolled in a 2-year automotive tech program. My mother cried like I'd enlisted in a losing war. Sienna, you're smart, she whispered, dabbing at her eyes. You could be so much more. As if working with machines was a step down from working with people. No one asked why I chose it, not once. The truth is simple and unglamorous. Machines made sense, people didn't. Engines have reasons. They knock because of timing. They wheeze because of air. They die because something starved them of spark or fuel. People, on the other hand, can smile at you while they walk you to a cliff. So I moved into a sun-bleached room above a diner with a window that rattled when the bus rolled by. I woke before sunrise, learned the sounds a car makes when the belt is 2 hours from snapping, and came home with black crescents under my nails I couldn't scrub away. Gus's shop, rusted signage, coffee that tasted like penance, became my sanctuary. I swept floors for a discounted bay, studied brake systems, suspension, fuel injection, diagnostics. My pride grew as my clothes got permanently stained. At home, my name thinned out of conversations. I'd call. They'd just missed me. I'd show up. They'd already sat down without setting a place. One Christmas, Aunt Carol gifted me industrial hand soap. For the grease, she said with a smirk, as if the joke were new to her and therefore new to me. Derek held court describing cadavers and mock rotations while my mother's eyes shimmered. Someone asked me how many lawnmowers I'd fixed that week. I said, 6 and 1 Maserati. They laughed. I wasn't trying to be funny. I stopped explaining and started stacking cash. While my cousins posted dorm selfies and internships, I posted nothing. They stacked debt. I stacked hours. Sometimes I lingered late at the shop to rent the bay and take odd jobs. Farmers who couldn't afford dealership prices, a delivery driver 2 breakdowns away from losing his route, a nurse whose Civic screamed like a kettle at 60 mph. I fixed what I could, refused to charge what I didn't need, and went home with heat still trapped in my palms. I did have one person who asked why I chose it, Marcus. He wasn't family. He became my boyfriend in the quiet way good things do, slowly, consistently, like a wrench finding the right tooth. He dropped by with takeout on nights I forgot food existed, asked me to show him how a timing light works, and never flinched when I met him with a smear of axle grease on my cheek. You're building something they can't see, he'd say, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. On his phone, his ex, Tara, lived a curated life of hotel lobbies and immaculate cappuccinos, which my aunt would have called polish. I didn't compete with that. I owned the opposite. Then, mid-oil change on a Thursday, hands black and mind bliss still, my phone rang. Unknown number, downtown area code. I wiped off with a gray rag that never got clean and answered. This is Sienna. A crisp voice. Is this Sienna Calderon? My name is Catherine Wu, associate at Miller & Grant Law. We were referred to you for engine diagnostics. There's a vehicle in a high-profile case. A pause. If your findings hold up, our client will pay $50,000 for consultation. For a second, the bay rang in my ears. Not because I didn't believe her. I heard every word. $50,000 to look at a car. To listen, really. To listen better than the people who thought always listening made them the smartest in the room. This isn't a prank, I asked. And I could hear my family and my own suspicion. How quickly I'd learned to doubt good offers. Catherine didn't laugh. I assure you, Ms. Calderon, this is legitimate. The matter concerns a vehicle allegedly tied to a timeline during a burglary. We need to confirm what's mechanically possible. We were referred by a local dealership. Apparently, you've corrected several of their misdiagnoses. I had. Not for clout, just to stop someone from selling a new alternator to a problem that was really a ground wire too shy to live. We'd like to retain you, she continued. There will be courtroom testimony, but we'll prepare you thoroughly. Are you available to meet tomorrow? I looked down at myself. Grease on my knuckles like war paint, hair in a knot that had surrendered hours ago, a raccoon smudge across my cheek Gus had teased me about yesterday. Yes, I said, I can do that. We'll send a car, she said. I almost laughed. Remembered my family still thinks I help out at the shop, like it's a summer job I never quit. I didn't tell them. Not my mother, with her thin-lipped sighs. Not my father, with his jokes about fast food backups. Not Derek, with his weary smile that says, "You tried the easy path." I finished the Corolla, closed the bay, and drove home while my brain crawled across possibilities like heat waves. The shower that night felt like standing in a confession. Water hammered against my back as I thought through every way engines tell time, how long catalytic converters stay warm after ignition, what a cold start sounds like against ambient temps, how aftermarket mufflers can lie to anyone but a Tash. I traced the memory of a man with a modded coupe I'd helped last month, the one whose home security footage was out of sync with the car's onboard logs. I had not thought I'd be the woman they call for court. I'd thought I'd be the last stop before the tow truck and the first face people forgot after they drove away. Around midnight, Marcus texted, "How's my favorite detective of combustion?" "Tomorrow, a law firm," I wrote, then added, "Don't tell anyone yet." "Never do," he replied. "Get some sleep." I tried. Ceiling at 2 a.m., still there at 4. At 7, I opened the shop as usual and changed oil for 2 regulars, whose cars sang like kettles begging release. I told Gus I had an appointment. He raised an eyebrow and nodded like a man who's rebuilt too many engines to be shocked by resurrection. At noon, a black SUV rolled up and a man in a blazer looked like he belonged in an ad for watches. "Miss Calderon?" he asked. "That's me." Glass-walled offices do a number on someone like me. Everything looked expensive and terrified of fingerprints. My boots clicked too loud. I kept my hands to myself like I might smudge the air. Catherine Wu was smaller than I'd imagined, sharp without cruelty. "Thank you for coming," she said, walking me into a conference room where the water came in glass bottles and the screensaver whispered about justice. A witness claims they heard a distinctive engine at a specific time. The timeline doesn't match. Can you look at the car's configuration and tell us if the sequence is even possible? There was no speech, no test, just a question for someone who knew the sound a heart makes when it's made of pistons. I looked at the files, the photos, the cold printouts from a machine that never learned how to lie convincingly. I didn't tell my family. Silence has become my favorite tool. While they passed around Derek's scholarship letter like communion, while Aunt Carol asked on Facebook if anyone knew a good brand consultant for her podcast, I went to Gus's and studied heat signatures until my eyes grain-noised. I sketched schematics on graph paper. I labeled folders, testimony outline, and exhaust frequency, with a neatness I never gave my high school binders. 2 nights before court, my parents hosted a dinner for Derek's scholarship committee. Long table, candles, napkins folded into birds, so precise I felt like I'd ruin the species. I wore dark jeans and a button-up, which made my mother say, "You clean up nicely. Code for you don't look like a car exploded on you." "Still turning wrenches for fun?" Aunt Carol asked, sour smile sweetened by something pink in her glass. I lifted a forkful of salmon. "Actually, consulting on a case downtown." Her tone tightened. "Law firms hire mechanics now?" Across the table, Derek snorted into his water. I wanted to tell them about catalytic converters, about how warmth clings like a memory, how data keeps time better than the smug little clocks on their wrists. Instead, I looked at the bird napkin on my lap and said, "Sometimes real-world experience knows things textbooks don't." Dad laughed. "As long as you're not asking us to post bail." Everyone laughed. I did too, because I knew something none of them wanted to believe. The engine in the car they parked outside had a timing belt I'd replaced last month. I left early. No one noticed. My 2 folders rustled in my bag like secret wings. The court date was in 48 hours, and whether or not they ever took my hand seriously, the machines always had. The conference room smelled like paper and lemon cleaner, the kind of sterile promise that says, if we file it well enough, truth will behave. Catherine slid a thin laptop toward me and rotated the screen. We mirrored the ECU logs, she said. Modded sports coupe, 2015. Aftermarket exhaust, and a tune we think is sloppy. I leaned in. I knew that family of engines the way other people know their cousins' middle names. What tune? I asked. Owner claims a street map. No emissions deletes. I hummed. Owner also claims he only speeds in Mexico. We'll see. Her mouth curved at the edge. Not a smile so much as a floor that doesn't creak. She clicked open heat maps, ignition events, a string of timestamps that pulsed like a steady artery. I took the laptop, let my fingers move, let my eyes soften the way you do when you're looking at stars. Don't reach, just receive. Here, I said, tapping a tight cluster. That's a cold start cycle. Loud for 90 seconds, mixture rich. Then the aftermarket mufflers cheat the ear. I glanced up. Whoever heard this car at 10:13 p.m. heard wrong. At that time, based on fuel temp and cat temps, this engine had been running for at least 30 minutes. Catherine exhaled so quietly it almost asked for permission. Can you explain that to a jury without losing them? I can explain it to my mother, I said. A jury is easier. We both knew it wasn't. My mother believes what makes her comfortable. A jury believes what makes sense. Machines, blessedly, prefer the second. The next 3 days were a new kind of grind. Not grease, not rust, language. I learned the cadence of court, the scaffolding of objections, the way an expert must be introduced like a ritual, the difference between knowing something and being allowed to say it out loud. Catherine drilled me with questions like she was teaching me to dance on a floor that bites. Do you have a degree in forensic science? No. Are you certified by law enforcement? No, but... Don't rush the butt, she coached. He'll cut you off on purpose. You'll give him the rope. Then you'll take it back with data. She was precise and relentless and kind in the way a well-balanced wrench is kind. It does not slip when you need it to hold. At lunch, she ate salad with the efficiency of a person who had already forgiven food for not being a spreadsheet. I sipped water from a glass heavy enough to be a weapon and thought about how many hours I'd spent arguing for attention at family tables, how in this room I only argued for clarity. You're sure you want to testify in your shop jacket? She asked that afternoon. Optics matter. Jurors expect experts to dress like people they were taught to trust, I finished. Suits, ties, expensive silk mistakes. I thumbed the name patch over my heart, the one stitched by a woman at a strip mall who had slipped my receipt across the counter like a blessing. If I dress like them, I'll spend the whole time playing catch-up. If I dress like me, I won't have to remember who I'm supposed to be. Catherine considered that for a long beat. Okay, she said. Then let the jacket do work for you. Keep it spotless. I smiled. One tiny oil stain, a signature. She didn't smile back, but her eyes warmed a few degrees, like a shop light flicked on in late winter. That night, I walked into my apartment with a brain that felt sanded down to grit. 2000. Marcus was at the stove, stirring a pot that announced itself as garlic long before I opened the door. He kissed my temple and set a bowl in my hands. I don't know what judges eat, he said, but if they're smart, it's this. Judges eat respect, I said, and batteries. He laughed, the sound I keep like a spare fuse. After we ate, he spread out the printouts on our table like a map before a road trip. Walk me through it again, he said, not because he needed it. He loved stories the way I love torque, but because he knew I did. I traced the heat signatures with my finger, explained how the catalytic converter keeps time better than witnesses, how a cold start leaves clues, how the engine's own diary would contradict a smug mouth. Marcus watched me with that chest-deep attention that makes you feel like your lungs have finally found the right rhythm. His phone buzzed and lit up with a name I couldn't not see. Tara. The ex with the curated cappuccinos, the one who'd once told me, I could never date someone who smells like work. She'd meant grease. She'd meant effort. She'd meant me. Marcus turned the phone over, face down, without looking. You don't have to do that, I said, aware of how quickly a woman can talk herself into being undemanding. He shook his head. I'm not hiding anything. I'm prioritizing something. I kissed the corner of his mouth and tasted garlic and something like promise. The next evening, I had to go to a dinner I didn't want. I'd promised my mother I'd show up for a small get-together for Derek's scholarship committee. I should have learned by now, in our family, small means the exact number of chairs that exclude me plus one. Candlelight, napkins folded into birds again. This time, swans, as if evolution had occurred just to mock me. You clean up nicely, Mom said, which is code for you are temporarily acceptable. Derek's committee head shook my father's hand as if it were a grant application. I was a chair with legs. Still tinkering? Aunt Carol asked. Pink drink, pink tone, sharp ice. Consulting, I said, on a case. Oh? She speared a grape tomato like it had personally assaulted her. Law firms hiring mechanics now? The table rewarded her with polite laughter. I could have said yes, because when reality misbehaves, some people call the people who live there. Instead, I looked at the candle and thought about how fire doesn't need permission to be true. Sometimes real-world experience is the degree no one prints, I said. My father lifted his glass. Just stay out of jail. A chorus of chuckles. Derek smirked into his water like it was a mirror that loved him back. I stayed long enough to count how many times my mother said proud without risking eye contact in my direction. I left without dessert. No one asked why. Outside, the night had that clean edge cities wear after a light rain. My phone buzzed. Catherine. Judge confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll do one more run-through at 7:30. I texted on my way home and ready. And then, because I am a complicated mix of steel and superstition, I added a wrench emoji and tucked the phone like a talisman into my jacket. I slept like you sleep before a race. Shallow, listening for a flag you can't see. At 6:40 a.m., I was in the shop bathroom, wrestling the tiny oil stain into the staying tiny. I tied my hair back into a no-nonsense knot and practiced saying, "Good morning, Your Honor," without sounding like I was auditioning for anyone's forgiveness. At 7:30, I walked back into Glass and Lemon World, and Catherine met me with a legal pad and a nod. "You're ready," she said. "Say it again," I said, for the engine in my chest. "You're ready." We did the last run-through. We rehearsed in the opening questions. We practiced the pauses where I would let the jury breathe. We practiced the traps. The prosecutor cutting me off, the implication that I was just a grease girl. I learned how to take the weight of a sneer and set it down on data like a jack stand. A junior associate poked his head in. "Cars on the curb. Bailiff says we're first call." "Let's go," Catherine said. We walked through the lobby. People glanced at me the way they look at a wrench in a jewelry case. Confused, a little offended, a little curious. In the elevator, two men in suits spoke in the low murmur of people who've never had to shout to be heard. One looked at me and then at Catherine. "Expert?" he asked, skeptical courtesy sewn into the question. Catherine didn't blink. "The expert," she said. The doors opened on a hallway that was all wood and echo. I could feel my pulse in my wrists, the way you feel the thrum of a well-tuned engine through the steering wheel. Outside the courtroom doors, Marcus waited with coffee and a smile that reached all the way. "For your hands," he said, offering the cup. "They've got history to write." "I'll spill it on this prosecutor," I said. He grinned, but his eyes were steady on me. "You don't have to prove anything. Just report what the engine already told you." Catherine touched my elbow. Time. Inside, the room looked exactly like TV taught it to look. Wood panels, flags, a bench that makes everyone below it sit up straighter. The prosecutor turned to glance at us. His smile was the kind you learn in a mirror. We took our places, papers shuffled, the bailiff's voice cut clean through the morning. "All rise." When the judge settled, when the formalities quieted, when the air went precise, Catherine stood. "Your Honor, we call Sienna Calderon to the stand." A rustle, just a soft one, like brushes on a snare. Someone murmured, "The mechanic girl," and I felt something old stand up in me and stretch. I rose, put my palm on wood, swore to tell the truth, my native language, and stepped into a chair. Built for someone who expected to be here, I sat anyway. Sat? "Miss Calderon," Catherine began, her voice the exact temperature of confidence. "Please state your profession for the court." "I'm an automotive diagnostic specialist," I said, and my jacket didn't apologize for existing. "I run a garage and specialize in internal engine systems, combustion analysis, and timing irregularities." The judge's eyebrows ticked up a fraction, the way a tatch climbs when you breathe on the throttle. "And how long have you been in the field?" Catherine asked. 7 years hands-on, I said. "I've rebuilt over 200 engines, consulted for dealerships, and handled approximately 50 cold start diagnostics for law enforcement." A tiny silence, respectful as a lifted hood. Catherine tapped the screen. The photo of the car appeared. Sleek, tuned, A liar if you only listened with your pride. Ms. Calderon, she said, based on your analysis of the vehicle and its logs, what did you conclude about the timeline the prosecution presented? I looked at the jury like I look at customers who are 2 breakdowns away from losing something they can't replace. I kept it simple. I kept it true. But I didn't say it yet. Not because I was nervous, because I understood something crucial. You cannot teach a room to hear until it realizes it doesn't know how. Let's start with cold starts, I said, and the prosecutor's pen stopped mid-note. Cold starts, I began, are like people in the morning. Loud, rough, unpredictable. They need warmth before they find rhythm. A soft ripple of chuckles moved through the courtroom, half surprise, half curiosity. I could see the jurors leaning forward just a bit. Good, let them listen. I continued, steady now. When an engine starts cold, it burns rich. That means more fuel, less air. It's noisy for about 90 seconds until it stabilizes. This car, I nodded toward the screen, had been idling quietly long before 10:13 p.m. Its heat signatures prove it. Catherine let me speak. That was the genius of her. She didn't interrupt. She conducted. So, in your professional opinion, she asked, was the eyewitness mistaken? Not mistaken. Human, I said. We're all bad at measuring time when we're scared. Machines aren't. Across the room, the prosecutor shifted. His smile was small and confident, like a man who's already rehearsed his victory speech. I could feel his next move before he even stood. Objection, speculative, he said. Overruled, the judge answered, without looking up. I almost smiled. So I kept going, explaining how the fuel temperature stays high, how the catalytic converter holds warmth like a secret, how you can tell exactly when a car has been driven, not by guessing, but by physics. I used metaphors simple enough for a juror, but detailed enough that even the prosecution's expert had to scribble notes. When I finished, I took a breath and leaned back slightly. The courtroom was silent, like everyone was waiting for the engine in my words to cool down. Catherine smiled, the tiniest victory shared in an invisible current. Then came the cross-examination. The prosecutor stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and offered the kind of smile people use before a punch. Ms. Calderon, you've never testified in court before, correct? Correct. You don't have a degree in forensic science? No. No formal law enforcement certifications? No. He let the silence stretch until it was smug. So, we're to believe that someone with, what did you say, 7 years of shop work knows better than trained investigators? I looked right at him, hands folded. I said I know engines, sir, not people. A few jurors smiled. He pressed harder. So you're asking this court to take the word of a mechanic over the word of the police? No, I said, tilting my head slightly. I'm asking the court to take the word of the machine. I'm just its translator. Catherine's lips twitched, fighting a grin. The prosecutor leaned closer. Grease under the nails doesn't make you an expert, Ms. Calderon. I met his eyes. Grease doesn't lie, sir. Data doesn't either. That one hit. A couple of reporters looked up from their laptops. The prosecutor blinked, regrouped, shuffled his papers, and tried to catch me in phrasing traps. But every time I came back with numbers, logs, timestamps, hard facts. After 15 more minutes, his confidence had melted faster than overheated coolant. He sat down. When I stepped off the stand, I caught Catherine's nod. Subtle, approving. Marcus was in the back row, eyes bright with quiet pride. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the embarrassment at the table. I felt like someone who'd built her own table out of steel and grit. The verdict came quick. Case dismissed. The courtroom murmured. Catherine turned, shook my hand firmly. You just rewired the whole timeline, she said. Nicely done. Outside, the autumn air hit my face like freedom. Marcus waited near the steps with 2 coffees. How'd it go? I grinned. I broke time. He laughed, wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Told you you'd make them listen. We walked to the SUV in silence, the kind that's earned, not awkward. I didn't tell my family, didn't send a text, didn't need to. But they found out anyway. 2 days later, Aunt Carol blasted the group chat with a screenshot. Expert witness disproves prosecution's timeline. Case dismissed. Her caption? Well, our little grease girl made the news. 12 laughing emojis. Derek replied with a meme of a mechanic wiping sweat from his brow. My mother texted, Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. Helped. Like they helped when I was scrubbing oil stains out of my clothes and getting teased for smelling like work. I typed a reply, deleted it, then closed the chat. Catherine's email came an hour later. Subject: You did it. She thanked me, attached the transfer confirmation, 50,000. I stared at that number, not with disbelief, but quiet satisfaction. $50,000 earned with calloused hands, not pity. I walked into the shop the next morning, coffee in hand, heart steady. Gus was tightening a belt on a Corolla. "How'd that fancy lawyer thing go?" he asked without looking up. I smiled. "Let's just say we won." He grunted, then smirked. "So you buying me new lifts or what?" I laughed. "You'll see." And he did. Within a week, I reinvested it all. New diagnostic bays, a bright sign with my name, a small espresso machine that made the shop smell like confidence instead of burnt coffee. The walls went from dull gray to fresh white. The place finally looked like what it had always been to me. Not a side job, but a calling. When Marcus stopped by and saw the renovations, he whistled. "You turned a garage into a cathedral." I smiled, leaning against the counter. Engines deserve reverence, too. He kissed me, forehead to forehead. And the woman who understands them? She's just getting started. The next few weeks, something strange happened. Family visits. Not hugs and apologies, just appearances. First was Lindsay, my cousin, walking in with her designer tote and broken key fob. She blinked at the new shop like she'd stepped into the wrong movie. "This is your garage?" she asked, phone halfway raised like she needed to document it for proof. "Yep," I said. "Oh, I thought you were still, at that rundown place by the tracks." "That was before," I said, checking the clipboard. "We upgraded." She gave a stiff smile. "It's really nice." "Thanks." 30 minutes later, her car was fixed. I waved the bill. "No charge. Family discount." Her cheeks flushed. "Oh, thanks." She left. 30 minutes after that, the family chat lit up again. "Sienna has her own shop now. It looks legit. How come no one told me she's doing this well?" They were finally curious, but too late. A week later, the local paper ran a feature, From Grease to Gold. Local mechanic helps crack legal case. There was a photo of me standing by the new sign. Charcoal gray jacket, calm smile. Mom texted, "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Wish we'd known earlier." Dad, "We could have helped with the article." Aunt Carol, "Lovely story, darling. Let's do an interview for my podcast." Derek, "Yo, saw the paper. You're famous now." I didn't reply. I'd stopped needing their applause. Because that day, while they were drafting messages to sound supportive, I was fixing a delivery van for a single dad who couldn't afford the dealership rate. He cried when it started. I charged him nothing. That night, I locked up, leaned against the shop door, and whispered to no one in particular, "The machine never lies." The stars flickered against the dark hood of a car I'd just rebuilt, and for the first time I realized I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I was building peace. 3 weeks after the case, the shop didn't just look different, it felt different. Every sound had purpose. The air compressor's hiss, the rhythmic ratchet click, the coffee machine steaming like applause. I replaced the old sign out front with something simple. Calderon Auto Diagnostics. We fix what others give up on. People started noticing. Regulars brought friends. Word spread fast. The same dealership that once mocked my amateur setup now sent customers my way when they couldn't figure out an issue. And yet, every time the shop door chimed and a family member walked in, the air changed. The first to show was Derek. He stood in the middle of the spotless showroom, sunglasses on, scanning the chrome finishes like he'd stepped into a parallel universe. "Whoa," he said finally. "This is yours?" "Mine," I said, hands in pockets. He whistled. "Looks like a dealership." "It's not," I said evenly, "but we do better work." He chuckled, still trying to decide if he should be impressed or offended. "So, my car's been making a weird knocking sound. Thought I'd get it checked here." I flipped through the schedule on my tablet. "Next Friday at 3 o'clock works." "Next Friday? You're booked that far out?" "Good diagnostics take time," I said. He blinked. "Right, cool. See you then." When he walked out, I caught my reflection in the glass door. Not smug, not angry, just grounded. Later that day, Marcus came by with takeout and a grin. "You should have seen your face," he teased. "That calm, I'm fully booked energy. Hot." I laughed, opening the boxes. "I don't need them to be proud. I just need the invoices paid." He raised his container. "To clean hands and dirty work." We clinked chopsticks. But the universe loves testing peace. That weekend, I saw a familiar name pop up on Marcus's phone. Tara. She'd sent, "Congrats on the feature. The garage looks cute. Didn't expect you to be in the papers." Marcus showed me the message without hesitation. just so you see it before I delete it. I nodded, calm but deliberate. She's trying to remind you she exists. She doesn't, he said, then deleted it in front of me. Still, that night, when I lay in bed listening to the hum of the city, the old reflex stirred. That need to prove my worth to people who'd already written me off. Family, Tara, anyone who saw me as the underdog. But the next morning, when I unlocked the shop and the scent of new paint and espresso filled the air, the thought faded. Because the truth was, I had already won. A few days later, Lindsay returned, this time with her husband's luxury SUV. "You're the only one I trust with it," she said with a tone meant to sound humble, but came out like charity. I fixed it anyway. That's the difference between pride and pettiness. One builds, the other burns. When she left, she lingered by the counter. "Mom's planning Derek's celebration next week. You're coming, right?" "What kind of celebration?" I asked, though I already knew. "His medical degree party, family only, formal attire. You have to come." I smiled. "If I'm invited, I'll think about it." She looked confused. "You are family. Then the invitation should come to me, not through you." She didn't reply, just blinked, muttered something about busy schedules, and hurried out. 2 days later, Gus taped a flyer to the shop's fridge. "Hey, boss, isn't this your cousin?" I turned. Gold-trimmed invite. Celebrate Dr. Derek Thomas, MD, family only. Saturday, 6 p.m., formal attire. I stared at it, peeled it off, and handed it back. "Keep it, Gus. Motivation." He snorted. "Guess some people still think you're the one who smells like oil." "I do," I said, "but it smells like work. They should try it sometime." That weekend, while they toasted Derek's brilliance under chandeliers, I was at the shop finishing a brake rebuild for a single mom who worked night shifts. She brought her daughter, a quiet 8-year-old with curious eyes, who asked, "Why are your hands black?" "Because they fix things," I said. "Want to see how an engine breathes?" Her eyes lit up like headlights. I showed her a disassembled carburetor and explained airflow in the simplest terms I could. She listened like I was reading her a fairy tale. Her mom teared up when the car started. "Everyone else said it wasn't worth fixing," she said softly. "Everything's worth fixing," I replied. Monday morning, I came in early, wiped down every counter, and opened my email. A message from the local TV station sat at the top. Subject, Community Spotlight, Sienna Calderon. "Hi, Sienna. We're featuring small businesses making a difference. Your name came up repeatedly. Can we film your shop this Friday?" I reread it twice, then I smiled. By the end of the week, the crew arrived. Cameras, clipboards, soft piano background music waiting to happen. The reporter asked if I had a slogan. "Yeah," I said. "We fix what others give up on." They filmed Gus pretending not to look nervous, Jenna rolling her eyes playfully, and Marcus handing me tools mid-repair. For once, the shop, my world, was seen exactly as it was, alive, honest, real. That night, when the segment aired, I sat on the couch with Marcus. The screen showed me wiping grease from my hands in slow motion while the narrator said, "Sometimes resilience sounds like a turning wrench." My name appeared at the bottom, Sienna Calderon, owner and lead mechanic. It lasted 2 minutes, but it rewrote years of dismissal. Because by the next morning, my phone had 16 missed calls. Mom, Dad, Aunt Carol, Derek, even Lindsay. Voicemails all the same tone, shock-coated in sugar. "We saw the segment. You were so composed. We could have helped you prepare. We're saving you a plate from Derek's party. Come by, okay?" A plate, not a seat, not a welcome, just leftovers. I didn't call back. Instead, I hosted my own dinner. Not a revenge party, a gratitude one. Gus brought ribs. Jenna brought cornbread. Marcus grilled outside while the radio hummed old songs. We ate on folding tables under string lights I'd found in storage. We laughed until the bay echoed. Around 9 p.m., I stepped outside for air. That's when I saw it. A black SUV idling across the street. Inside, my parents, Aunt Carol, Derek, watching. They didn't honk, didn't wave, just stared. I didn't move, didn't smirk, just looked back. Calm, steady. Because there's nothing louder than being unbothered. And nothing colder than realizing you're finally on the outside. Not because you were pushed out, but because someone else stopped waiting to be let in. The Monday after that night, the shop buzzed like it had a heartbeat of its own. The TV segment had aired again during the morning broadcast, and customers doubled overnight. New faces, old neighbors, even a few who used to drive right past my door on their way to the dealership. Jenna joked, "Boss, we're celebrities now. Someone just came in asking if you're the lady from TV." I grinned, pulling onto my gloves. Did you tell them celebrities still do oil changes? She laughed. Told them celebrities fix check engine lights before breakfast. The rhythm of work drowned out the noise of attention, but the messages didn't stop. My phone lit up with family numbers I hadn't seen in months. Mom, we'd love to come see your shop sometime. Dad, your mother's been talking about you nonstop. We're proud. Aunt Carol, let's do a joint interview. Strong women in business. Wouldn't that be fun? Derek, so when can I get that engine looked at? Ha ha ha. It was like the same people who once dismissed me suddenly remembered I existed, but the difference was I didn't need them to. That week, Marcus came by during closing. I was wiping down the counter when he leaned on the doorframe, watching me. You realize you've become the person they pretend to be at dinner parties, right? I looked up. What, the scandalous self-made woman with grease under her nails? He chuckled. No, the one who doesn't need applause to exist. I smiled. Then I guess I'm dangerous. He walked over, hands in pockets. You were always dangerous. They just didn't read the warning label. I laughed and pressed my forehead against his chest. He smelled like engine oil and coffee, the scent of home. But peace doesn't last long in families like mine. By Thursday, I got another message, a forwarded text from Lindsay. Aunt Carol again. Have you seen Sienna's interview? She could have used some PR help. The lighting was terrible. Still, good for her. Lindsay had added, ignore her. They're just jealous. I didn't reply, because I didn't care. Friday evening, I stayed late to close the shop. Music low, lights dim. I walked through each bay, brushing my fingertips against clean steel, remembering what this space used to be, a dream I defended alone. Then a knock on the glass door. It was my mother. She looked smaller than I remembered, like life had deflated some invisible pride balloon. Mom? I unlocked the door, half expecting this to be a trick of exhaustion. Hi, honey, she said softly. I was just nearby. I raised an eyebrow. Nearby? We're 40 minutes from your house. She sighed. Your father drove. He's parked across the street. I glanced at the SUV. Of course he was. I saw you on TV, she continued, hands fidgeting with her purse strap. You looked so confident. I nodded. I was. I didn't realize you'd done so well for yourself. That's because you weren't looking. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. Not this time. I suppose not. We stood in silence, the air thick with words neither of us knew how to fix. I'm happy for you, she said finally. Thank you. Your father wanted to come in, but... But what? She hesitated. He said he doesn't know what to say that won't sound too late. That's because it is too late, I said. Not cruel, just honest. She nodded slowly, the kind of nod people give when the truth fits too well to argue with. If you ever want to have dinner, I'll think about it. She smiled sadly, turned to leave. At the door, she paused. Sienna? Yeah? I'm sorry we didn't see your worth sooner. I swallowed hard but stayed still. I saw it. That's what matters. When the door clicked shut behind her, the quiet felt heavier than the noise ever did. The next morning, I decided something. No more waiting for apologies. No more proving. Just living. So I planned something different. A community barbecue to celebrate 1 year since opening the shop. Not a family-only gathering. Not a dinner with toasts. Just gratitude. Gus grinned when I told him. Free food? I'll bring the smoker. Jenna said she'd handle decorations, which meant minimal balloons and maximum sass. Marcus offered to set up a small stage for local musicians. You built something worth celebrating, Isamoah, he said. Let's make some noise. The day came fast. The lot filled with folding tables, laughter, and kids chasing each other with grease-stained napkins. The air smelled like ribs, diesel, and sunshine. At one point, a little girl asked if she could help tighten a bolt. I handed her a small wrench and said, Careful, this is the key to everything. She grinned like I'd given her treasure. That's when I saw it again, that same black SUV parked across the street. My parents, Aunt Carol, Derek, watching. They didn't come over, didn't wave, just watched the people laughing, eating, celebrating. And for the first time, I didn't feel bitterness, just distance, the clean, peaceful kind. Marcus slipped his hand into mine. You okay? Better than okay, I said. I'm free. He smiled. You sure you don't want to invite them? I shook my head. They've always been invited. To change. They just never RSVP'd. The night stretched warm and bright. Laughter echoed through the shop bays. Cameras from the local news team showed up again, unplanned. Can we grab a few shots for our community reel? The reporter asked. Sure, I said. Want a plate first? They filmed for a few minutes. Marcus flipping burgers, Gus joking with a customer, me handing a wrench to that same little girl. Then the reporter asked, "How does it feel seeing how far you've come?" I paused, looking at the crowd, my real family, and the shop that had once been just a dream. "I used to think I had something to prove," I said. "Now I have something to protect." The cameraman lowered his lens slowly, like the sentence hit him too. Because it wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about peace. The kind you earn, not demand. Across the street, the SUV's engine started. My family drove off quietly, their headlights fading into the night. And I turned back to the party, my people, my purpose, my noise. By the time the music faded and the last paper plate hit the trash, the night had turned soft and silver. The barbecue smoke still clung to the air, thick with laughter and diesel and everything that once defined my version of home. Gus was wiping sauce off his hands with a rag that would never recover. Jenna was teasing Marcus about overcooking the ribs. A few kids still played tag around the parking lot, their sneakers squeaking against the concrete. I stood there watching, a woman who used to be a punchline, now running the kind of life no one thought she could build. It was quiet triumph. Not the loud kind, not the posted on social media kind, the kind that sits deep in your chest and hums softly, steady as an idling engine. Marcus walked over, sliding his arm around my shoulders. "You did good, Calderon." "We did good," I corrected. He smiled. "You know, when I first met you, you were rebuilding an alternator and humming under your breath. I asked what song it was, and you said, 'Whatever's still playing in my head,'" I finished for him, laughing. "Guess it's still the same song." "Yeah," he said, tightening his arm around me. "But now the whole world's listening." He wasn't wrong. After the TV segment, the local newspaper wrote a follow-up story. From Greece to Grace, the mechanic who rebuilt her own life. Customers came from neighboring towns. Someone even mailed me a handwritten letter, saying my story helped them quit a toxic job and start their own business. But none of it changed how I lived. I still came to work at sunrise, still brewed bad coffee that somehow tasted right, still wore the same charcoal gray jacket with my name stitched over the chest, Sienna. That jacket had seen everything. The nights I doubted myself, the courtroom that proved me right, the silence of family dinners where I disappeared, and the noise of a shop I'd built from nothing. Late that night, after everyone left, I walked through the bays one last time. The floor gleamed faintly under the dim lights. Every tool was where it belonged. I could still hear echoes, Marcus laughing, Gus arguing about barbecue sauce, Jenna threatening to quit if I ever made her scrub another tire wall. Home. Outside, the lot was empty except for my old pickup. I leaned against it, looked up at the sky, and saw faint movement across the street. The SUV again. Same one, same shape in the driver's seat. My father. My mother beside him. Aunt Carol in the back. They weren't smiling. They weren't angry either. Just still, watching, like people circling a house they used to own. For a second, the old instinct rose, the one that wanted to wave, to forgive, to let them in. But forgiveness without growth is just another way of saying, "Come break me again." So I didn't wave. I didn't move. I just whispered, "You had your chance." The SUV idled for a few more seconds, then turned away. Its red taillights faded into the dark, swallowed by distance and peace. I took a deep breath. The night air tasted like steel and freedom. Inside the shop, I grabbed a towel, wiped my hands, habit, and hung the jacket on its usual hook. The embroidered name caught the light, Sienna. A name they once said with pity, now with respect. I turned off the lights, one switch at a time, until only the neon sign outside glowed. We fix what others give up on. It wasn't just about cars anymore. It was about me. About every woman who's been told her work is too dirty, her dream too small, her hands too rough for success. About learning that peace isn't what you find after being accepted. It's what you build after you stop asking for permission. I locked the front door, heard the bolt click, that perfect, satisfying sound of security, and whispered to the empty air, "I used to fix engines. Now I rebuild lives." The wind carried the words away, soft as a thank you. Tomorrow there'd be more cars, more grease, more stories. But tonight there was stillness. And for the first time, that was enough.